I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, the issue is a California coronavirus curfew. Dr. Deborah Birx, the coronavirus response coordinator for the White House, joins us to talk vaccines, reopening schools, and the presidential transition. Plus, former and future Republican Congressman Darrell Issa is with us to talk about his return to Congress. And Tom Steyer, the co-chair of the California Economic Recovery Council, is with us to share his group's final recommendations to the governor. The issue is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, California's only statewide political show. You're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. As coronavirus cases continue to surge and more restrictions are put into place, we're joined this week by Dr. Deborah Birx, the coronavirus response coordinator for the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Dr. Birx, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Glad to be with you.
Let's begin with the good news, right? Because we all can use some good news these days. Let's talk about the vaccines. This week, major progress. Pfizer applying for emergency use authorization from the FDA. Major progress when it comes to the Moderna vaccine. Take us behind the scenes on what's going on there right now and what we can expect next.
Great. Well, let me just start by thanking the Americans, over 70,000 of them, that stood up and agreed to be on these trials. And because of them and because of their sacrifice, we now know that 2 vaccines have really extraordinary effectiveness and safety. And so we have 2 additional, in addition to the Moderna and the Pfizer. There's Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca in trial now. So this is very encouraging to every American, and that's why we're asking every American, and particularly every Californian, in this moment, you know what to do. You did it in the summer, and we need you to do it again, and we need you to protect one another.
Yeah, I noticed that you are choosing to wear a mask for this interview, even though you are, I presume, 6 feet apart from people. Why that decision? What are you trying to say?
You know, I want to make sure that every American that knows you can work in these masks, you can socially interact in masks, you can be physically distanced and still socially engaged. We've given everyone the ability to really be together with masks on, and that's what we need to do going into the holiday season. I know it's a personal sacrifice for everyone to really limit their gatherings at this time.
So let's talk about what's happening in California. This week, the big news is the governor is putting in what he calls a limited stay-at-home order, basically a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. for restaurants, bars, other non-essential businesses. From a scientific perspective, does this make sense? Because other states, other countries have done curfews, and does the science bear that out?
Well, you know, I don't ever second guess the governor. I've been to 42 states now talking to governors and mayors, and it's really important. Governors know their unique situations in their states. I'm always happy to provide advice on what we're seeing, but we're seeing significant spread throughout California, and something needs to be done now. Now, we know in the summer, many of the states were able to control this virus by doing a mask mandate, limiting indoor dining, closing bars, restricting gyms, and really talking to their communities about really stopping gatherings and personal social gatherings in individual households. And that stopped the spread of this virus. We can do that again, and we know that works.
But have you seen science that suggests that a curfew makes a big difference?
You know, in Miami County and Miami City, they had to do that because they had continued to have spread despite closing the bars and closing indoor dining. But then they realized that where that spread was happening was in personal gatherings, households and communities and families getting together to really be together, and they weren't taking precautions. So they had their mask off, and that was really the source of significant community spread. And so it's really important, independent of whether you have a curfew or not have a curfew, we know what the drivers of these infections are, and it does take each individual to decide that their family is special to them and their friends are special to them.
Let's talk sort of big picture. What have we learned since the beginning of this? LA County, the biggest county in California, is now talking about going back to a safer at home model if we see cases average over 4,500 a day for 5 days as an average. One day this week, cases were at 5,300 cases in just one day. Based off of everything that we have learned so far, does that sort of mass shutdown of a safer at home still make sense? Is that still necessary, or is there maybe a more targeted approach based off of what we've learned so far?
Well, we learned across the South, again, that approach of a very targeted approach works, but it requires everyone buying into that. We can make public spaces safer. Governors and mayors can do that, but they can't make your private space safer. And that's really on all of us to mask, physically distance. And if we're going to be with others, make it sure it's outside with masks on, and that every time you go inside with people who are not part of your immediate household, you could be creating a viral spreading event that will affect your community and the economics of your community.
Let's talk for a moment about the issue of schools, because we have seen businesses opened, but schools closed through much of California and through much of the country. Now we know everything that we know. Was that a wise priority?
What we've learned through the fall in the colleges, the universities, and the K through 12 schools that opened, that the in-physical classrooms with masks on was a safe environment. Colleges did not see spread in the classroom. And colleges that continued to test for what we call that asymptomatic silent spread vastly reduced the amount of community spread among the community of college students.
So what you're saying right now, I mean, because college students are way more at risk in terms of the science of this than much younger kids, what you're saying is, why can't we just open up the schools? Why can't we open up elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, based off of what you just said?
Well, a lot of states did.
Right.
And I want to tell you a lot of universities did. And I want to really applaud those university presidents because they took a risk. But what they said was they believed that the students would follow the guidelines. And what we learned is 18 to 22-year-olds followed the guidelines. They masked on campus. I've been to over 30 campuses. I've seen these campuses. Students used masks. They've really totally recreated their facilities so that people could be physically distanced in the classroom. They protected their faculty and their staff. And you know what? They made it to today. And many of them are going home now, having been tested on the university campus, having been taking extra precautions to protect their parents when they return home. So if our college students can be that responsible, you would think as the rest of America, we could learn from them and be as responsible in our behaviors.
The information that you're talking about is literally life or death. And I'm curious if you have been in communication with the Biden-Harris transition team about the information that you're talking about. If they have been in communication with you about potentially staying on in that administration and whether you would want to.
I haven't had that opportunity yet, but as you know, someone who's been in government for 40 years through 6 or 7 different presidents and their transition and supporting who's ever president at the time with your best judgment, your best determination, your best work. And that's how I've lived my life. I stand available to, if they think I am useful in the transition or they think I'm useful in the future. I have always, that's been my work ethic from the beginning in service of this country. And it's been a wonderful life of work.
But isn't that kind of surprising that you're the coordinator for the White House on this issue and you have not been in communication with the Biden-Harris transition team on the biggest issue of the day?
Well, I think, there's very strict rules around transition and how they occur. And having been through multiple of those transitions, I understand why we have to wait for that moment in time when transition can occur. I will tell them, and they should be reassured, we are ready, we are transparent, as we have been with the governors. We've sent them a report every single Monday. It's a detailed report at the data with data visualizations. Data is helpful when it leads to action.
Right.
And we all need to act on the data we have now.
And just to wrap things up, any final word for the people of California right now as this thing continues to spread?
So the people of California, I know you well. My brother was at Lawrence Livermore Labs and then lived in Oakley, California, which was a privilege to visit outside of the Delta. And I just want to say to each and every one of you, particularly the moms out there, I know you want to see your friends and family. I know you want to get together, but now is the moment to be extra vigilant. Let's get everyone vaccinated. Let's control this virus. And let's have a future together. And we make these personal sacrifices over these next few weeks so that we have a lifetime together. And that's what I would like every Californian to do.
Well, Dr. Birx, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family early as well as this sort of strange year continues. Thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for taking time to talk to us on such a busy and important week.
Thank you. Take care, every Californian.
All right. Our thanks to Dr. Birx. Up next, former and future Republican Congressman Darrell Issa is with us. And a reminder as we go to break to log on to our website, theissueisshow.com.
I'm proof that California can recycle just about anything.
That was Darrell Issa on the Fox Business Channel recently talking about his return to Congress. The former congressman will be returning to Congress in San Diego, the home of our affiliate Fox 5 San Diego. And joining us now from San Diego via Skype is former and future Congressman Darrell Issa. Congressman-Elect, welcome to The Issue Is.
Well, thank you. It's the good news is you're supposed to have the term congressman for life, but the hyphenation gets a little old, so I'll be happy when we drop the elect and former.
Yeah, I don't quite know what to call you, so we'll just go. Let's start by talking about some of the electoral success for Republicans in California, because you were in a pretty reliably Republican district that you won, but several of the purple districts, the real swing districts, are being won by Republicans in California, and being won in a year where Joe Biden looks like he's going to beat Donald Trump in this state by about 30 points. What's going on here? What do you think is the message that voters are sending?
Well, I think it's a return to the center, having seen each of those incumbents that were defeated here in California having voted to impeach the president on a pretty frivolous claim when people look at it after the fact. So that's a factor. If each of these districts were in 2018 an example where the combination of ballot harvesting and perhaps running against President Trump at that time allowed for the defeat of a number of members, including, the seat that I just won came within 3 points of being defeated. So the bounce back with my winning by 8 and several of these others, up to 4 other seats returning, is really a return to the normal. I don't want to claim some sort of a resurgence of Republican dominance in California. This is no longer the state that would call Reagan quite the same home, but it is an example where people went too far and the pendulum is now swinging back to closer to its norm.
Well, speaking of Reagan and speaking of the guy behind you, Abraham Lincoln, President Trump tweeted about you this week. Let's put this up on the screen. It says, "Thank you, Darrell Issa." And it is when you said that the president is on par with Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan in terms of his value add to the Republican Party. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
Absolutely. Donald Trump came in, and in my hometown, my birthplace of Cleveland, Ohio, suddenly blue-collar union workers are seeing the Republican Party as the party that they should belong to. So in the same way, it's additive. President Trump has added a whole group of voters who believe that the Republican Party can and do care for them, particularly when it comes to fairness in foreign trade.
Who do you think won the election, Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
I believe people should allow the courts to do their job. The president and, for that matter, Vice President Biden have a right to be represented in front of judges under the law in each of those states, and let the courts decide.
But the president has stated emphatically that there was voter fraud. He has said that the election was rigged and that it was unfair towards him. Have you seen any evidence that the election was rigged? Have you seen any evidence of mass voter fraud?
Well, you know, you use the term mass. So as soon as you use the term mass, that's an undefined number. So how about we do it this way?
Enough to change the outcome of the election. How about that?
How about this? We have in every election, in every state, in every county, different rules. So the lack of common rules give people around the country a reason to be concerned.
Let's talk about some of the priorities of Congress for a moment. Obviously, issue number one right now is the coronavirus. So many of your constituents are hurting right now.
You know, we should react to protect those who are at high risk. When we look at children, they have almost no risk. When we look at the elderly, there's a greater risk. So I think defining that is important. The public interest is that the hospitals not be over-swamped in a way in which innocent people would not be given access to health care. And if we go back to that, the government helping make sure we have the resources, and then those resources being protected from those excesses, that would change considerably what the governor's orders would be like.
This week, Fox 11 Los Angeles exclusively obtained photos of Governor Newsom's dinner at the French Laundry with several high-profile lobbyists. I talked with somebody who took this picture this week. What is your reaction to seeing these images and hearing about this event?
Well, I think I'm going to surprise you a little bit. You know, when the governor, when he was lieutenant governor, and I got to know each other pretty well. I've read his book. He's read my book. Look, he made a mistake. He's apologized. Certainly, it seems pretty hypocritical when you look at this. And I think this is one of those gotcha moments that shows that maybe do as I say, not as I do, means that you shouldn't have to do what he says. This is an opportunity that I hope the governor will take to maybe measure twice and cut once on his orders going forward.
We like to get to know people a little bit. We play a game called Personal Issues to have a little bit of fun and get to know you. This is the first time that you've been on this show, so what we do is we put 30 seconds up on a clock and we ask you some questions. So here we go. You ready? What's your favorite movie?
Godfather.
Favorite meal to cook?
Steaks.
Favorite type of music?
I'm a folk music guy, a lot more than people think.
Who's your favorite liberal?
Well, it's probably going to be the president.
Favorite way to relax?
My favorite way to relax is quite frankly skiing. I love it.
And who's your role model?
Well, I'm going to have to say Ronald Reagan. If you hadn't asked for liberal, by the way, General Wesley Clark is my favorite Democrat. I served with him in the military, but I can't call him a liberal. He's a Democrat, but he's not really a liberal.
And when you say favorite liberal has to be the president, who are you referring to? Donald Trump?
No. Look, if Joe Biden becomes the president, you know, he will be a person that we have an obligation to work with, push back at times, but there's an awful lot of legislation that needs to be done, including election reform, transparency in government. There's a lot of those things, and probably the one that's hardest is, you know, who's your favorite liberal? Again, I will say that Juan Vargas and I are the closest in Congress to each other, have traveled together, and most people would say he's a liberal, but he's also my friend.
All right, well, we like to play music on this show. Are you a fan of the Eagles?
I am. I'm old enough to remember when they were young.
You're about to go back into the life in the fast lane on Congress, so we're playing some of the Eagles. Here we go. Life in the fast lane, surely make you lose your mind. Congressman Issa, Congressman-Elect, whatever we call you. Great to talk with you. Come back soon on The Issue Is. Be right back. Tom Steyer when we come back. Since April, Tom Steyer has co-chaired California Governor Gavin Newsom's task force on bringing businesses back. Well, this week, they released their final recommendations. Shortly thereafter, he gave one of his first interviews to us.
Based upon his leadership. Tom Steyer. Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Former presidential candidate Tom Steyer helped coordinate more than 100 California business leaders, including Apple CEO Tim Cook and real estate magnate Rick Caruso, in offering suggestions to Governor Gavin Newsom to ease the pain of businesses struggling during the pandemic.
Everybody did it out of the goodness of their hearts for each other, and they put aside all their differences. That's how it's supposed to work when you're in a crisis.
Their bottom line suggestion?
To have a sustained and positive recovery, we need to put health first. We need to have the virus under control.
The task force promoting a hashtag Shop Safe, Shop Local campaign online and a California rebuilding fund to help small businesses survive.
I have heard those small business owners come and cry, and my heart completely goes out to them. We are all in this together, and they have done nothing wrong.
I asked about the timing of shutting down the task force now, right as the governor is restricting more businesses with curfews and closures.
It is coincidental that we're putting out our report and, completing these proposals at a time of a spike in the pandemic.
As for Steyer's future, could he soon be joining the administration of his primary rivals, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris?
I think it's absolutely critical for them to succeed as an administration, and I'll do anything I can to help that.
That sounds like a maybe to me. Our thanks to Tom Steyer. As we go to break, we're playing Stand Up for Something from Audra Day and Common, which was his walk-up song. More of The Issue Is when we come back. Next week on The Issue Is, Maria Shriver and Patrick Schwarzenegger are back for a special Thanksgiving episode. We're basically taking a step away from some of the partisan politics of the day. In that spirit, we end with one woman all Americans seem to love, Dolly Parton. This week, we learned that her $1 million donation helped to fund the Moderna vaccine. And in her honor, let's end with some 9 to 5. Thanks to Dolly, and thanks to you for watching. I'm Elex Michaelson. See you next time for more of The Issue Is.